Hello everyone, this is your friend Saeed, and today we'll be discussing about how do we allocate or test it in our local and be sure that our pipeline doesn't break whenever we are deploying applications over CloudHub when we see the OOM error. So basically OOM error means out of memory error, which is very common in terms of MuleSoft vCore allocations. And why is it is a very important topic in current date is because come on, like the cost of vCores are too high. Now for example, let's take into consideration of the cost of one vCore, wherein we can eventually split it down into 10 different 0.1 vCore sizes, and we can deploy 10 applications on it. But the cost of one vCore, the rental cost of one vCore for a year is about $30,000, which makes it very keen and very problematic when it comes to running business on it. So that's why it's always better option to make sure that we are efficiently deciding what would be the effect of vCore allocation which we do, and as well as do a thorough regression testing or the load testing on our local, so that we are sure that the pipeline or the build doesn't break when the application gets deployed on the CloudHub. Many of the times you guys would have seen that if an application is automatically getting restarted on the Anypoint platform, we see that the logs are getting overhinted, the logs are getting vanished. I mean, the whenever you're trying to hit a request, the application automatically restarts, and this is usually found when it breaks due to out of storage. Now let's talk about what is vCore. So vCore is a dedicated instance of uh, working unit which will work uh, on the type of specification which we provide. A vCore can, the minimum size of a vCore or the default size of a vCore is 0.1 vCore. The next of it is 0.2 vCore, the double of it, and then similarly we can keep increasing it to 1 vCore, 2 vCore, or decide on what basis we want it for. Now this is a table which is available online, so you can just have it for a reference, and then we can proceed further. Now let's get back to our Anypoint platform. Let's quickly create a new POC. I'll go to Mule project, click on next. Then I create a project called as uh, vCore size setting. Okay, I click on enter and I create a new application. So here it will be a very simple project that we will be using. So let me add a HTTP listener, logger, transfer message to convert the data from CSV to JSON, and let's use a file write operation so that it stimulates that we are actually writing something onto our local. Okay, I'll write this file write connector here. Now let's quickly get on to the connection configuration of these connectors. First, for the HTTP listener connector, I'll be using the default HTTP port, and no TLS will be set for now. And in advance as well, I'll be setting the 40 seconds as the timeout value, as it's just a POC level application. I've checked the use persistent connection, and now let's go back. For the reconnection strategy, let me just quickly have it for standard, and yeah. So what will happen here is I'm trying to reconnect every 2 seconds, and the maximum time it will reconnect is 2 attempts. Now let's go back to general. The port which I'll be using is the default public port, that is 8081, not a private port like 8091 or 8092. Let's quickly click on OK. Or before that, if I click on test connection, this should land up to be as test connection successful. Yes. Now click on OK. Once we click on OK, let's give it a path like vCore size. Let's give it as vCore size, all into caps. Click it here. And in the transfer message, we want the output to be as JSON, and let's just print out the payload. Well, right before that, let's give the logger expression converted CSV. okay, CSV data to JSON successfully. Okay, it's an info level log, so let it be. I'm not gonna comply to all the C4E compliant rules for now, if in terms of creating the connector configurations in a separate global XML file, or having the values being defined in property files, or even like having a proper name for my connectors. For now, I'll just set it for default values, just as this is just a tutorial video. Okay, now here in the file write connector, let's quickly configure the configurations for it. I'll click on connection, and then I'll select the working directory. I've created a path in my system to select the working directory. Let's go to Macintosh users, and inside users I'll be going to Saeed, and I'll select this folder working directory, and then I'll just click on open. I'll click on OK. Now alongside with this, we would have to give the path of the file on which it will be writing the data. For this, what I'll quickly do is I'll just create a sample XML file. I'll just it's just Google Sheets. Okay, so let it be empty. Let's use this POC Excel sheet. Okay, now just let's download this. I found the download. Let's open the folder. I have it here. Command C will help me to copy. Let's go back to the path folder here, and inside this let's go into the working directory and paste our file POC Excel sheet. Click on open. Yep, so that should basically help us to define the working path of the file. Now content of it will just be the payload, and content parent directories would be true, and the write mode would be overwrite, so that every time we are running the application or giving a call to this particular connector, we do not append or we do not overwrite the values. We do have the options here, but I would just go ahead with overwrite, and in the logger we have already set the message that converted CSV data to JSON successfully. Yeah, now let's quickly say Ctrl+Shift+S, and let's quickly run the application. Now before I go into this, I'll need a payload which is in good quantity, good size. So for that, I have created a Python code. Now the Python code is in such a way. Let me just quickly explain that Python code. I'm using the Cursor AI code editor to like simply execute my Python code in local. So what this small script would do is, it's just a very simple code where first I'll be importing the CSV module. This module provides functionality to read from and write to a CSV file in our local. Then import OS is nothing but this module provides the functionality to interact with operating systems. For now it is my MacBook here, and although it's important here, but still we are not using it. Just to overcome the intermittent errors onto my studio, I have just imported the OS module as well. Alongside with that, let's go to the definitions where we are defining a function. Now create large CSV is the function name, and the parameters used here are file name and numbers. So we'll use this file name to create the name of the CSV file to be created. Like for example, I have used the file name to be as large sample.csv, and the number of rows can be defined here. Okay, so you can set infinite number of rows, but that will definitely heap up your memory in your local, or you can just set it to a file size, like for example 6 lakh 7 lakh records will be more than 80 MB of CSV data. Now in the header section, I have defined a couple of parameters, or this can be considered as the headers, where ID, name, email, city and country are the row headers, and the row content, the columns would be containing the values of uh, the numbers ID with an incremental function of +1, and the name with an incremental function of +1. Email also goes with the same, city also goes same, and country goes same. So for example, the first index value here would be 0, name 0, email 0, email 0 at example.com, city 0, and country 0. And the next iteration will be like 1, name 1, email 1 at example.com, city 1, country 1, right? And it goes on till the num rows which we have defined. Now, alongside with that, with open file name, mode as w, new line with an encoding of UTF-8 as file. This file or this basically this uh, file writing structure here is where Python identifies the code to write a particular file in that format. It helps us to write a new file with the desired output which we want. Instead of printing it out completely on the terminal or the console of the IDE, it rather goes and prefers to print the output data over the file path which we are setting. Right now, if I just like, these are the basic terms which everyone can understand. File name and mode w means just to write the file. New lines are separated by this in this commas, colons, and encoding is basically UTF-8, which is the default value which we'll be using for file simple text files. Now, coming to the writer file structure, it will be a CSV writer into the file, and the write row depends on the header size. Now, every time the header size increments, that is this, and the next value is being separated with a new line character with the write mode, and whenever it is writing a new value, it iterates over the row value and increments it by the default value of I plus 1. Right now, for I in range num rows is a for loop wherein every value of the index, that is I, it starts off with a 0 index value of 0 uh, and increments it eventually. Now, in the write row, data is formatted with an initial value of I, which will be 0 for the data in row data, which row data is nothing but the values which we have predefined to be set as the column values. Now, the final function here is nothing but to print the values of the file name created with the number of rows which we are specifying, and here we are giving the estimated size of the rows which has to be adjusted. For example, average row size should be 100. This actually is in terms of KBs, and target size is in terms of MB. Target size bytes would be equal to target size bytes into uh, like 1 MB into 1 MB. So we are converting this basically into byte structure. Now, number of rows would be target size bytes by the modulus of average row size. Now, this function here, we have used line number 4 to line number 23 to create a function and define what the function does, and we are executing the function in line number 26, where it does nothing but it just writes all of the function which we have defined into a new file. Now, I hope MuleSoft developers are not completely confused here. I'm doing this because it's very difficult to find a file of around 80 plus MB or 100 MB, 200 MB of data, or 1 GB of data, 1 gigs or 2 gigs of data of just random simple CSV values or text values online. So hence, servers also are not like the ideal functionalities which keep that data. So I've just written a function which will help us to execute this. Right now, let me just run this. So our file name, let's keep it as large sample CSV, and I'll keep the file name as this. Okay, so this will be our complete file name which will be written into our local. Come on. Oh, sorry. Now let me just quickly copy this. Command C. I'll execute this. So once I execute this, you see that the file name large sample mule.csv file is being generated with 838860 rows. Okay, which is around 1 times 100,000, 10,000 lakh, 8 lakh 38 rows and 860 rows generated with a fraction of second. This will eventually result for a file size of more than 100 MB, which will help us to like break the pipeline when we are testing it on local. The path for this is nothing but the my system users, then Saeed, desktop, and import CSV. Okay, Now let me quickly go into Finder and find the file so that we import that file. Okay, let's search that file so that will be better. Is this? Anybody, where are you? Yeah, here. So we got the file generated. Now this file, let's quickly open that. Since it's a big file, it does take a little time to import or open basically. Let's use the Microsoft Excel to open it. Yeah, we are able to open it now. So as you see, we have generated around 8 lakh plus records of data, CSV data, sample data, just in a fraction of a second, right? So that's the example why I've used the Python code to generate this file. Okay, and it's confidential always to use company policy data. So it's the best approach to use your own data, sample data, and use it for your POCs. What I'll do is Control A. I'll copy this data, right? And once I copy this data, let me create a Postman collection. Okay, let me create this as well. Okay, so I have the path set as vCore, and let me quickly paste this data here. It does take time. My MacBook is not that slow, but yeah, since it has lakhs of records, it does take time. Okay, we have pasted the entire data here, and I'm setting the body type as raw and the type of data to be as text. Alongside with this, let's go back to our studio now, and I just wanted to show one more thing here. What is the path, by the way? It's vCore size. Okay, let me copy this resource name, path, copy, go back to the resource which I've kept here. Okay, so now let's go to the concept of vCore allocation in these structures. Let's take this. I excuse for this. Anyways, okay, so vCore setting is done in such a way that we are able to mock or allocate the local kernel to give so much of allocation to the application at that particular instance. Now, for example, the by default setting for an application or a vCore 0.1 vCore in our local file is set as XMS value as 480M. XMX value will be similar to what XMS value is, that is 480M, and the reserved code cache size, this is the cache size which we are allocating in the workspace or the kernel for that particular application to be as 64M, and max direct memory size to be as 32M, and similar to that, max metaspace size is 25.6M. So this is basically what a vCore is. Like, we think that 0.1 vCore is kind of a vCore which is isolated. It's just kind of an instance of worker where it works based on the size of like 0.1 gigs or something like that. It's not actually that in the practical sense. It's these parameters which help to define a vCore. Now coming to the next, that is 0.2 vCore. It's mostly the double of the XMS values in the 0.1. So let's take 960M, 960M, and this would be 128M, 240M, and the max meta size to be 25. Similarly, for 0.3, we'll have the more multiplied version of the values which we are setting. Now let's take an example. We'll try to set this application to 0.1 vCore. We copy these values and paste it in our Anypoint Studio. I'll show you where do we actually have to paste these values as well. Now let me go to the run configurations. Once I enter the run configurations, I go to arguments. Just a second, please. Sorry. Here, let me select the application name. It is vCore size setting. I go to run configurations, vCore size setting. Deselect this. Go to arguments. Pass all these values in the VM arguments. I click on apply and I click on run. Click on yes, because by mistake I had clicked the run button. Okay, so now it is launching the application for me. Once it launches, we should be able to see that OOM error and the JVM exception error popping up into our console, as well as the uh, postman. So why am I doing this is because every time we try to develop an application, if we use the generic sense that do we really have to do the regression testing in our local instead of deploying the application on the CloudHub and test the breakage or the threshold point of the application? Yeah, why not? It's a very good approach actually, to test your application's potential or the application's tolerance level based upon your logic which you ever whichever files you have built. Now here in my case I just have a flow, not a subflow, basically a flow which has 4 connectors, but in real sense we might have multiple pages altogether. Each flow is being called by another, and each page is being referred back or internally called back by a different connector. So this is basically ideally trying to represent the problems which we currently face, that vCores are getting overly used, and few of the applications are actually given extra heap vCore allocations which actually is not required, and few applications which need a space to breathe are never being given the space to no uh, breathe in a normal way. Breathe in a normal way is like, I mean, to process or asynchronously process or synchronously process data at a real-time instance. Okay, we see that the application is now deployed. Let's go back to the postman. And where's my postman? Yeah. Now let me just hit the request. So once I hit the request, you guys should be able to see the error coming as maximum response size reached. That means my pipeline is now breaking. So what do I can tell from here is body is more than 10 KB and can only be viewed in editor. This is the postman uh, like limitation. But the real example or the real issue which we are currently facing is maximum response size reached. Now this also refers to one more type of error, that is, I just quickly write it down here. Let me write it down here. It is okay, OOM error, that is out of memory. Yeah, memory. Okay, so this error comes whenever we are facing an OOM issue into our application. So what happens here is we see that the application gets restarted multiple times, even if you're trying to call the application or just try to send some data to the application, or if there is any other third-party application trying to be connected with that application directly gets restarted, which results in loss of data. Even if you are configuring your log4j2 file to send data to a different instance, still your application would not be able to send, because the very moment when your logs have to be printed, your application itself gets restarted. Okay, now the other way around, to test or allocate the better or bigger size of the vCore is, now go back to the run configurations and go to the arguments, the VM arguments. Now give the values of 0.2 vCore. So this is the way you can actually test what is required for your application instead of deploying it on the CloudHub. Control A, Control V, click on apply, run. Yes, because I already have the port utilized for the same application. I hope everyone is doing good, and I have been very inconsistent in recent days in uploading my videos. I do apologize from my very heart for that, but yep, I will definitely make sure that I create regular videos here henceforth. Okay, now I've set the value of 0.2 vCore, and I still know the pipeline will break because my size of data is too high. Too high is too high in the sense I have passed 8 lakh records at a time. Now I'll close this. Now when I send the data again with 2 vCores, 0.2 vCores, again I am getting the same exception that maximum response size has reached. Got it? So similarly, what you guys can do is, I can put this in the description, or you can just take a quick screenshot of the values here. Is, for example, if you are setting the value of 0.1 vCore, these are the values. you double it and you get the 0.2 vCore value. Then you increase or double it as per your requirements. Set 0.3 vCore, double it for 0.4, double it for 0.5. So this is how you would be able to define if an application has the space to breathe, and if there is an application which has too much of space to breathe, which can be scaled down to efficiently reduce the costing and efficiently manage the applications on that particular business group of your application. All right, so hope this video is helpful for everyone here, and do let me know if you guys have any doubts in the comment section. I'll try to respond to all of the questions as much as possible. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Have a great day. Signing off for now. This is your boy Said. Thank you. Control.